chairperson of New Voices, New Faces Rwanda chapter, all distinguished guests, all protocol observed. Welcome again to this afternoon sessions. I am personally so excited this afternoon to hear New Faces, New Voices Rwanda chapter strategic plan. After what we've heard this morning from Dr. Monique Nsanzabaganwa and all other speakers, I think we are all excited to see how their vision will be achieved. Like Mrs. Grace Michelle had said, multiplying faces, amplifying voices to reach women of all walks of life here in Rwanda. So I think this will be a very interesting session, which will be moderated by Shani Cronje from Moderate Deloitte. If you can please come up. The panelists for this afternoon sessions will be Dr. Monique Nsanzabaganwa, the chairperson for New Faces, New Voices Rwanda chapter. We also have UN Women representative, Ms. Diane Ofwona. We have Ignace Bacyaha from IFC. If you can all join us here at the stage, then Ms. Shani will start by her presentation of the strategic plan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Margrasa Michelle, thank you for being here today. Dr. Monique Nsanzabaganwa, thank you so much for all the hard work that you've put into the strategic plan with us. I would then also like to say a very, very special word of warm welcome to Madame Joy Ngutse, the Rwanda New Faces, New Voices founding members, the alliance partners, the sponsors of today's event, and then most certainly, and perhaps most important for the way going forward, all the amazing role models we have for young women on the continent, all sitting in this room. I wish some of my junior colleagues could see all of you here today, and I'd like for all of you just to give each other a warm word of welcome, because we're going to talk more about role models this afternoon and its importance. So welcome, everybody. So our panel conversation this afternoon is going to be a little bit unconventional. I'm going to start off by giving some brief highlights of the strategic plan and the business model that we've co-created with our alliance partners and the chair and the deputy chair, as well as the founding members of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. After that, we're going to just have a very brief discussion to talk about the implications, the way forward, very exciting, the investment window and so forth. But perhaps let's just start off a bit by unpacking financial inclusion. I think a very, very important component is that financial inclusion means that everybody has access. And here we're really referring to all levels of society. A very important part of this access is that it's not only about savings products and transactional products. It's also about insurance. It's also about investment. The usage aspect is very, very important. It's not just about having products and services, but it's the extent to which, especially women in Rwanda, use these products and services. And then last of all, quality. We spoke earlier this morning about dignity. An important part is quality, that these products and services are really, really tailored to all the individual clusters of women. Now, we spoke this morning also about successes. Rwanda most certainly has managed to double its financial inclusion from 2008 to 2012, the most recent FinScope numbers. And I think we're all looking forward to more doubling of that numbers so that it can reach government targets of 80% by 2017, and 90% by 2020. Perhaps then let's just reflect on some of the research that we did for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices around some of the challenges that women face. And in a nutshell, Rwanda is a low-income country. It has achieved significant economic development accomplishments. To date, a number of families do remain below the poverty line, and research indicates that women-headed households are more inclined to be poor than male households. Women are then also more likely to be earning informal wages, despite general access. Despite equal access on primary levels, already in secondary and tertiary educations, we see a number of young women dropping out. And also, once they get to tertiary educations, they're less inclined to go for formal business qualifications or engineering and more technical skills. From an income, wealth, influence perspective, I think it's absolutely amazing that Rwanda has more women in parliament than men. If we look at the private sector, Rwanda again leads sub-Saharan Africa by having equal men and women, but we do most certainly want to see more women in influential positions, the decision makers, especially on the private sector side. From a social demographics perspective, some 54% of the adult population in Rwanda are female. And that's quite a significant, number, critical mass of women that could be economically empowered. And I think perhaps then we should also bear in mind that Rwanda is a country that is moving at great momentum. Mama Shell called it profound transformation this morning. But regardless, the financial sector still does stay relatively young. I don't want to talk to too many facts this afternoon before I talk about Rwanda New Faces, New Voices business model. But perhaps one point I would like to touch on is some of the primary research findings that we've had. And I think the first is that there are very, very specific clusters of women that have been identified, and that any initiatives that will come out of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices, programs that will be strengthened through partner organizations, need to take in consideration the needs of each of these individual groups of women. Too often, financial inclusion initiatives look at, for example, just one aspect, the lower income or informal entrepreneurs, cooperatives. But equally important is our young emerging entrepreneurs, of which we met quite a few in Kigali, who I hope many are here today. I also see some of the professional women that we engaged with, both from a junior and a mid-level, as well as the very, very senior women. Those women most certainly are also facing challenges. As much as they can serve as powerful role models, we also need to look after them. A lot was then said throughout today about the problem of, what is the challenge of financial inclusion? How many women need to be included? But I'd like to pause a little bit and share with you the why that we've discovered. Okay, the why is very important. It's going to help Rwanda New Faces, New Voices shape its unique investment vehicle. It's also going to help deliver through the different business lines. I think first and foremost, we spoke about the education and information deficiency. And curiously enough, it's not just lower income women or informal entrepreneurs or cooperative members affected by this, but even the young emerging entrepreneurs need more information on financing available to increase their businesses and more access to finance. An interesting point was made around cultural issues today. And I think one of the pertinent aspects that came through the interviews and the focus groups is the cultural dimension. And most certainly we can look at traditional legacy culture within our continent. But perhaps something that stood out is women have a fear of failure. So what that means is it translates into limited confidence, less inclined to approach a bank for a loan. The almost devastation of such a loan is not granted. And perhaps the self-confidence that came up from the panel earlier is most certainly very, very important. Around financial products, I think it's wonderful that there are so many banking officials here today, because most certainly, products need to be shaped for women. Skills and training gaps, I think this is one that is very well familiar. Surprising then to us was to find about hard to understand bank processes. And this barrier did not emerge from our interviews with the lower income or informal entrepreneurs or cooperative members. This actually came very directly from some of the younger entrepreneurs and our junior to mid-level professionals who said that often the whole process of banking is just enormously daunting. And because you're not quite sure what other products they are, you prefer to just stay with savings and transactions, because anything that deals with investments and insurance just sounds complex and hard, and women feel a little bit uncertain of themselves of constantly asking banking officials to explain the fundamentals to them. A very important aspect that emerged from all levels is the lack of mentors and role models. And most certainly, if we research this, and I think a lot of us are familiar with, if you walk into an organization and you look up, and there are very few role models, what is it that we as women can aspire to? But this role models and mentors is not just in, let's say, the more sophisticated groups of women. These role models and mentorship is equally important for our lower income women, for informal entrepreneurs, and for cooperative members. And I think there, Rwanda New Faces, New Voices has a really wonderful opportunity to open up networking alliances, networking events on a very practical level as well as on a more commercial business level for women to start being also role models and mentors to each other. Often we find in some of our emerging entrepreneurs, and as well as our informal entrepreneurs, there's a reluctance to formalize or to grow businesses. Proximity of financial institutions is a challenge to women in rural areas, of which there are many. And I think it's perhaps sometimes, practically one thing, but it's only 3 kilometers away. But 3 kilometers may be a half an hour walk there and a half an hour walk back. That means that it's an hour out of a woman's day away from her family or away from her informal business activities. If we then perhaps look at barriers that I think most certainly a few women, senior women, have also experienced, it's corporate pressure. Within the business environment, how many organizations really consider flexible work arrangements for their working mothers? The almost, work from home and so forth. Women almost feel that tremendous corporate pressure of not only being the executive, but most certainly also being the mother, also being the provider for family members, for siblings, and so forth. Then there's also most certainly, and was touched upon in the session today, is the perceived barriers to gender equality, where often women perceive and often experience in the workplace that opportunities do not always come their way, that they are passed over for promotion. Most certainly there's to ask for it as well. But those sort of perceived barriers sometimes become a self-inflicted bias of sorts, believing that it is not possible to accomplish and to achieve. I think lastly then, a challenge, especially for informal and younger entrepreneurs, is within the broader Rwanda, there's still a huge impetus for private sector growth, which is also going to be a very, very important component for financial inclusion and women as they grow. So in a nutshell, what does the research tell us? It confirms the information spoken about today, as well as cultural barriers, and then as well as limited security for loan. And these conclusions are very, very important because this informs Rwanda New Faces, New Voices strategic objectives, as well as its business lines that it will enact on. On the supply side, if we look at the financial services sector, commercial banks, microfinance institute, the USACCOs or Merengue SACCOs have been very, very successful. But nevertheless, information is not readily available. The process remains opaque. Capacity, capacity doesn't always necessarily sit amongst women that need to be financially included, but it's often a challenge for formal organizations in the private sector to also get enough adequate skills on the banking side to be able to serve women. And then last of all, as also mentioned, proximity. Now, the very big question is, how is Rwanda New Faces, New Voices going to address these challenges? Okay, and a very important aspect of this was working with our team to shape their strategic ambition and their strategic intent. A workshop was held in Kigali. I've facilitated many workshops in my life before. Often, in business, there's a lot of men in the room, but there were so many women in the room, it was absolutely amazing. And the ideas and the energy and the enthusiasm and the ambition in the room was incredibly tangible. And that essentially led us to the vision statement for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. That is a Rwanda where women co-create their financial inclusion and reach their full economic potential. Equally important is the mission statement that Rwanda New Faces, New Voices will serve its members and women throughout the value chain by increasing access to finance and through new investment initiatives. These 4 strategic goals then form a very, very important part of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices implementation plan as they embark on this journey. And there's a very, very specific, clear set of activities that need to happen in the next 6 months, in the next year, and in the next 3 years for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices to start achieving its vision and to come closer to the objective of 1 million families out of poverty, 1 million women and their families out of poverty. I think there's a very, very big realization that access to finance is critically important to strengthen the skills and the capacity of women in Rwanda so that they can increase their financial inclusion. I think very importantly is to grow the number and the visibility of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices members, its organization, but most importantly, influence in decision-making bodies. And then last of all, to set up a fully functioning, financially self-sustaining organization. An organization that is not just there as a social enterprise, but as we've heard many times today, an organization that is open for business. If we then perhaps just reflect on how Rwanda New Faces, New Voices is going to do this, I think first and foremost, most importantly, is the 4 business lines that Rwanda New Faces, New Voices is going to embark on. From the networking aspect, here a key is going to be mentorship and role model programs for women across all 6 of the target clusters, and most certainly to create events such as this event for opportunities for women to network amongst themselves. Much has been said in research about women not networking, but often, the career woman who at 6 o'clock has finished the day, often, male colleagues or younger colleagues head off to a restaurant, a bar. So often women go home to look after their children and to take up their family responsibilities. So those networking events are critically important. The advocacy perspective, I almost want to warn all the financial service officials in the room today that you're going to have Rwanda New Faces, New Voices knock on your doors. You're going to have them in your corridors and in your boardrooms, because advocacy is a very important part of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. To work very, very closely with banks when it comes to creating more information on products and services, to tailor-made the products and services that have been discussed earlier this morning by, for example, Equity Bank and so forth. The advocacy function is then also to say to the government of Rwanda, you know, if we want to track progress on financial inclusion, we need to disaggregate the numbers. We need to be able to report on a granular level of exactly how many women have insurance policies, how many women have not only savings accounts, but are also starting to, you know, do investments and so forth. So that progress becomes very important to track over time. Critically important then is the investment window. And I think that's going to be an important part of our panel discussion, to establish a private equity fund for women. And I'll share some more details around that just now. From a programming perspective, there are most certainly already in place several very, very good programs that deal with women entrepreneurship, access to finance. It's very important that there's a custodian for these programs, so that Rwanda New Faces, New Voices also has a responsibility and an opportunity to give information on these programs to all the women interested. At the same time, to liaise with the program developers and program implementers, such as the alliance partners, to strengthen programs, to tailor these to the needs of all the different clusters of women, and also from a programming landscape perspective, to check and to see, you know, where are the gaps? Okay, what programs need to be launched? Information services, and I think information is twofold. On the one hand, it's for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices to become the custodian of information, to share information very, very broadly with its members, very easily through, for example, online portals. It's a wonderful way to also create business communities. But at the same time, to also work closely with government to become the keeper of information on women in Rwanda and their progress towards financial inclusion, program participation, and so forth. If I then just briefly touch on the investment window, is from the beginning, New Faces, New Voices made very clear its ambitions. It was not going to be just a social enterprise that looks after traditional functions such as networking, advocacy, and information. But Rwanda New Faces, New Voices want to be brave, they want to be bold, they want to play a direct role in providing access to finance for women. So a part of our journey was to examine examples of private equity funds as well as women's banks. I was delighted last night to meet some of the founding members of Ignace Bank. You know, as a consultant, it's one thing to analyze something, you know, through desktop research, but then to speak to the woman and to get an understanding of their risk management fund. And perhaps a very, very important input for the investment window is that Ignace has called what they have a risk fund. And this risk fund is being used for women who do not have collateral for loans. It helps them to get access to financing. Then perhaps the investment window, okay, the investment business line. Rwanda New Faces, New Voices envisages to establish a fund for women called the Women's Investment Fund. Such a fund would be a hybrid between a venture capital fund and a private equity fund. Rwanda New Faces, New Voices seeks to, first of all, start off by getting seed capital from its members and from all its members, starting with, for example, a very, very low amount of $10, building up against on a sliding scale. And Rwanda New Faces, New Voices seeks to raise 16 to 20 million US for the Women's Investment Fund. It is going to focus on getting $4 million from its own members who become the share owners of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. From there, they will be seeking matching financing from the government of Rwanda. And once the government of Rwanda has provided matching funding, also then to speak to donor entities, to finance institutions, to private investors, to do the remainder of the funding. Okay, so it's going to be very important for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices to establish a very, very confident brand in the eyes of the investment community within the coming months. Briefly touched on then was also the legal form for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. Now, the legal form needs to be sufficiently flexible that it most certainly balances the aspirations of a social enterprise with its women's investment fund and investment business line, but at the same time also bearing in mind the long-term ambitions of women. And most certainly, as you know, we analyzed, evaluated options, received input from the Rwandan legal community, the most best flexible option for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices is to register itself as a public company limited by share and limited by guarantee. Now, this is enormously exciting. It means that Rwanda New Faces, New Voices as members become the shareholders of the entity. This legal model does not restrict the number of members or the number of shareholders. And then also, should Rwanda New Faces, New Voices decide to raise public financing in, for example, 4 years' time, it would be able to do so in line with capital markets regulatory requirements to develop a perspective and to show a strong track record of governance. Perhaps on that note then, very important is the governance structure of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. And Rwanda New Faces, New Voices would always be accountable to its members through its AGM and its General Assembly. Rwanda New Faces, New Voices would have a board with directors, a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, treasurer. And then it's also recommended, though not required from a legal perspective, that Rwanda also, New Faces, New Voices also has an advisory board that is made up of influential women in the public and private sector, as well as, for example, representatives from alliance partners. From a director perspective, it's recommended that each of the 4 business lines have a director who, though the directors won't be executive, in the beginning play a very, very significant role in establishing each of the business lines. Perhaps then just a last few points. First and foremost, it's going to be very important for Rwanda New Faces to finalize its legal incorporation process. Communication is going to be so important, not to only reflect today's events and to create excitement, but to very publicly claim who is Rwanda New Faces, New Voices, what Rwanda New Faces, New Voices seeks to achieve within Rwanda, and to launch it from there to start the drive for the share capital and member contributions. If we perhaps then, reflect a little bit on what do new organizations need to be successful. In our world, we deal with many organizations of different maturities. And I almost want to say to Rwanda New Faces, New Voices, you have a clear plan. You are ready for action. What excites us as one of the entities that work closely with you is that you have all the ingredients to make it happen. You have a very, very strong shared identity to make a difference in the lives of women in Rwanda. You have directional intensity, you have passion, and you have ambition. And you have a very clear common interpretation of what lies ahead. And most certainly, it's also at this point that symbolically the strategic plan now becomes yours. And at the end of the day, a strategic plan is really just the enabler. More importantly, is the action that you've started to take and the action that you will be taking. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes just a brief highlight of the strategic plan of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. I'm just going to join my panel members on the stage, and from there we will also handle some questions for you. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, panel members. Thank you for joining me on stage. Okay, as I said, it's a bit of an unconventional hour this afternoon. But I think very importantly, I'd like to start off the conversation with each of the Alliance members and then also Dr. Monique, perhaps just sharing with everybody here why working with Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. Dr. Monique, if I look at all the time that you've spent together with Madame Joy in the last months, also your passion for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. So if I could perhaps, Diane, start with you from the United Nations Women perspective.
Thank you very much. I always seem to be the one who starts off. It's a privilege, is it on? Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the study, very important and very enlightening. Why did UN Women decide to get involved with New Faces, New Voices? I take this opportunity to really say how delighted I am, and on behalf of our organization, how honored we were that New Faces, New Voices actually approached us in the first place. The first thing is that there was a convergence between the mission of New Faces, New Voices and what UN Women actually does. So I guess we were a natural partner. It's right up our alley as UN Women, the UN gender entity, the entity for gender equality and women's empowerment. We do focus in 3 areas. One is the political empowerment of women. We look at all the social empowerment issues, and we also look at economic security. So really it was a natural. The second thing is that I saw the first time Monique just started to talk, I saw an explosive and transformative potential in New Faces, New Voices. It has the potential to change the financial landscape and the destiny of women of this country if it goes full board. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that initiative? And the third is actually our ED, our executive director, Dr. Pumzile. I dare not pronounce her second name with so many South Africans in this room. You have to click her name, and she always challenges us to try and pronounce her name, Mlambo Nguka or something. You know, she's a dynamic woman. She's always asking us to look for game-changing, transformative initiatives. And when you see one, you grasp it. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So there is a fantastic potential. Now, I don't know if you want us to go a little further on what we intend or have done, but we can do that later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ignace, on behalf of the IFC, we've heard some wonderful words this morning from Jean-Pierre, but if you could perhaps recap very specifically, as the country representative, your interest.
I think on my side, I would first put on the table my own interest. As a person, as a member of the community, I felt when I was approached by New Face, New Voice, I felt honored. I felt this as an opportunity to be able to support, to be considered to support. Why? Because wherever I have worked, with women in my previous life. It has been a way to make good results. So, Monique, today I have to tell you, and I think Madam Chair raised this yesterday, you gave us an opportunity by approaching us. Now, secondly, in terms of organization, we have done a lot with women. There was a convergence with your mission and ours. Ours being facilitating access to finance, to private sector, giving unleashing opportunity for entrepreneurs, whether they are men or women. But for women, like Jean-Philippe mentioned this, we went over the last 5 years with a business portfolio which was 69 million. We have reached 1 billion. So this speaks by itself. It is a good business. Second thing, a body of studies that we have conducted show that if we were to fill this gap of women that are excluded, this will translate into a business of 300 billion. So we have done only 1 billion. This is one of 300 that we have done, so not enough. Third, we have a body of research as well that show that there is a correlation between having women in the workforce more integrated would contribute 25% of the GDP, and for countries such as Egypt, which are completely exclusive, this will go up to 34%. So these are opportunities. Then when we have new face, new voice coming to seek for a partnership, I thought that we would use the best of our resources. We are in the business of working on access to finance, so convergence of interests. We are in a business of providing network. We have a large network on women banking. We have a large network on SME forum. And beside this, we have a device for capacity. So these are tools that I thought could be useful for new face, new voice.
Thank you, Ignace. Dr. Monique, your passion.
The question? What's the question, please?
I think, Dr. Monique, from our side, and especially for all the participants gathered here today, your interest in Rwanda New Faces, New Voices, and your passion for this organization, where did it start?
I don't know where and when it started, but I know that, as everyone has said, it's always an opportunity. And sometimes in our professional lives, in different roles and responsibility we hold as women in different offices, you tend to just do the job and just deliver on whatever targets, but you don't ask yourselves something that is going to make you think and feel uncomfortable. So when we attended the inaugural African Women Economic Summit in Nairobi in 2010, where New Faces, New Voices was launched, I was then Minister of Trade and Industry, and representing Rwanda, I was with Joy. We kind of got challenged. But later on, I was no longer Minister of Trade because I was moved to the Central Bank a few months later And I said, maybe I was going to plan something now for the women business as minister, but in the central bank, maybe. So I had excuses, like, I'm new in the central bank, I have to learn, I have to perform. But New Faces, New Voices kept challenging us, actually asking us chapters, where are you? What are you doing? So what's happening? What's coming up after the inaugural conference? Then again, that discomfort came back. And then I said, actually, even where I'm sitting now, I'm even to be answerable to the women on matters related to finance. And I have no excuse because I have been given golden opportunity to be here. And this is really a center where financial decisions or financial transformation of the financial sector, the decisions and the policies and the regulation and the developmental role that is played in central banks is played. So what excuse can I present to my president or to the Rwandan women or to the First Lady or to our Minister of Gender and Family Promotion or to my mother or to my aunties in the rural area where I was born? I felt really that huge challenge. And I said, maybe this is an opportunity, and opportunities don't come so often. So you must seize it as it presents, because it can easily slip, and then you won't have that opportunity again. So that's what has been driving us. Joy and I, we kind of convened a few ladies in the financial sector, the business community, actually struggling to understand even the vision of New Faces, New Voices, because it was not that mature. It was still in the developmental stages, and we had really to improvise a few things here and there. And but that's where I would say that commitment is coming from. And all the ladies, the 18 founding members, they are all feeling the same. It's like this is an opportunity. We have to make it work for ourselves, but also for other women whom we represent. And it's hard work, but it's enjoyable work. It's been very tough in terms of really intensity of involvement, but we liked it a lot. It made us really come into that bonding feeling you can't even explain. So we feel like we can move this room and shake all the pillars to get things done. And another motivation is everyone we talked to about these initiatives, they liked it on spot. So it was kind of validation that it's really something that is much awaited. There's value attached to it. And when you see something of value being appreciated, you feel like I have no reason to really fail these people who are looking at New Faces, New Voices initiative for a solution in so many regards. So that's really not me alone, but the entire group, because we are really a powerful group, I would say, that is trying to do things in our own modest ways, because we are busy women in so many respects, but we feel that if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it, and that's the essence of co-creation. So that's a key word in our vision. We want to co-create. We want to come together and do it ourselves and show and pay back to government, by the way, because government has done everything. The laws Parliament has voted are empowering. The systems you have in place, we have the local government in place, we have institutions, and we are saying we are indebted. and you have to pay back this debt. So that's where really the passion comes from.
Great. I think I almost want to use that as a little word of wisdom, and especially again, I think for all the women in the audience. Very early on in my work life, I attended a leadership seminar in Johannesburg, and one of the participants over lunch spoke that, you know, for a long time she was very frustrated in the work environment because opportunities never came her way, until a role model and a mentor said to her, opportunities are taken, they're not given. And I think it's very powerful what we hear today is that Rwanda New Faces, New Voices is seeing the opportunity, and they're taking the opportunity, and they're shaping the opportunity. And perhaps then on that note, as we've also had words such as transformative explosion, and perhaps, you know, increasing access to finance, and moving out of one's comfort zone, I would very much, Ignace, like for you to talk through the Women's Investment Fund. You know, there's a lot of, you know, social enterprises out there. We have a lot of very good examples of women's banks, women's funds, and so forth. Nevertheless, this is very courageous and very brave of Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. If you could perhaps just give us, you know, from your perspective, the investment window, the Women's Investment Fund, why it's so important, and perhaps also the requirements to make it a success in coming years.
Yeah. Thanks. I think having new face, new voice, launching without an investment window would have been, the question one would ask is, what is it that you are bringing that we don't have in a market? What is it that New Face, New Voice as an organization will bring in addition to what the Minister of Gender is putting on the table for women? I guess my first reaction to the investment window is that New Face, New Voice group has been very courageous. Take the responsibility to own their own destiny by going out and commit for the women who are in this room, for the women who may not be in this room, and say, we can talk to you, we can go and raise money from you, and own our own destiny. I think this is the first thing that I would like to congratulate the group for making this choice. In Kinyarwanda, we have a dicton that says, Imana irafashwa. It means even God need to be helped. So if you want to be helped financially, you may choose to come and say, this is my hand, can you give me something? But you may say also, this is what I bring on the table, can you top up? So this is first thing I want to recognize. The second thing is, from our experience in IFC, we realize over many years that between the microfinance segment and the banking segment, where you have more structured SME, and the microfinance where you have the women closer to the SACCO going for 2,000, 3,000, there was a missing link. And the missing link was, how do we provide funding for small enterprises that do not have collateral? Because if your family was not rich, like my family, you can't you still need to do business. You still need to mean business. But if you don't have a collateral, what is the option? So it became clear that we needed, as IFC, to think another model. That's why we brought a company in South Africa called Business Partner International. We pushed them to go out. We brought them to Kenya. We brought them to Madagascar. We brought them now to Rwanda. And they experienced another model, which is we can lend to anyone who has a good idea without collateral. And we can lend to this SME, to this person, based on the viability of the project. So if you look at the problem that women have, your constituency will have, this is exactly the problem. Many of them do not have collateral. So the fund could be a solution to cater for this, this need. The other thing is this model provides a quasi-equity fund, which is a way, if you don't have funding and you need for a small time, we can, the fund can come with you, put money in equity, and get out. So your business grow, and when it reaches a certain stage, you have a put option where you can buy out back, which means we help you grow and we can exit. So on this, the model has done its proof with a business partner, with Growfin, and we have a number of funds across the world that have worked. The last thing is, one of the conditions for this fund has been you need to do at least 30% of women, enterprises should be by women. You will be surprised in Rwanda for business partner, without pushing too much, we have reached 50% of borrowers are women. So this again thank you. So this again gives a clear path that if new face, new voice has to go this way, there is a body of knowledge through the market that shows that it is possible.
Thank you for that, Ignace. It's very insightful. Another very important business line is going to be the programming side. And Diana, I know that there you have years of experience. If you could perhaps, give some advice to Rwanda New Faces, New Voices on what to look out for in the programming landscape, some of the successes that you've seen across all the target clusters that Rwanda New Faces, New Voices wishes to reach.
Thank you very much. The first thing is, I would say that New Faces, New Voices has started on the right foot. That is the most important. It saw an idea, went out for it, and went out for it full blast. The launch today is evidence of that. It's something that is being taken very seriously. But beyond that, there is the strategic plan. You cannot start anything without a vision, a roadmap to where you want to go. So we have that in place. The next step now is the institutional framework that supports or anchors that strategic framework. And as we say, it does not have to be in terms of buildings, blocks and mortar, no. What is happening and what we have just heard from Ignace is very important. There's a product that has come to meet a big gap in the financial sector in this country, and New Faces, New Voices is going for it. I was personally impressed by the three-pronged approach of this initiative, and I will tell you why. We have done many, many, many years of empowerment and what we have broadly looked at as economic empowerment of women. Break that down. What does it mean? Anytime you go out, they tell you, oh, we're just giving capacity enhancement for women. Meaning, we're talking about how you will create wealth, but we're not providing you with the vehicle that will take you there. So we have been talking about it, but we have been doing less of doing it. There's some good initiatives, and I could speak globally, but let's zero down to Rwanda. There's been some fantastic initiatives that have actually put money in women's pockets. I really love that phrase. We have the Agaseke project, for example. That's basket weaving. That's, you know, it really changed the lives of thousands of women. We've done a project called Imali. Imali in Rwanda means, I think in South Africa as well, in Zulu, Kosa. It means money, wealth, you know. And Imali is a project that took 900 women or 1,000 women going forward. The initial was 1,000 women. And each of them, each group of 90 got a greenhouse. So it's greenhouse agriculture. But the next step is going through the whole value chain and doing contract farming. And how were these women chosen? The poorest quintile from the poverty profile were selected. And these women, because you have a baseline, their incomes are less than $1 a day or $1 a day. And now we're talking of, in the southern province, I was very happy to see the governor of the southern province, because he's been doing a lot of encadrement, supporting, you know, moving with the women. One of these cooperatives in the southern province has in their bank, from an initial investment of $9,000, the last time we visited them last year, after all expenses paid, they've paid themselves. What is sitting in the bank in terms of real cash was $54,000 US. I wish we had thought at the initiation of this project to ask them to buy a greenhouse for the next group, but we didn't. It's an afterthought. There are many initiatives that have done well, but pitifully few that have such a leap and a bound, such a transformative vision for women, and including, especially, ensuring that they do have access. And what I want to say lastly is, in terms of programming, and I think we have spoken a lot with Monique on this, the test will come. First of all, I'm really, really grateful, and I was really happy that BRD decided to provide this space. We had been talking a lot about how much will rent cost, and that's, at least for the year, off the table. Fantastic. But the human resource capacity that you put in that office will make or break this initiative. It has to be people with the same vision, with the same level of passion, and the same level of ambition that this initiative has. And then people also who are not afraid. One of the most frustrating things I have seen as a manager or as a leader is when the people you work with spend their time telling you why it is not possible because the rule says this and that, you know. Why can't we look, you know, policies are but frameworks, you know? It's a framework. So what can you do beyond sticking to the party line to shift boundaries a bit within acceptable legal boundaries, but make sure that your first line of defense is not, I can't, I won't, I'm sorry. It's like, oh, it's difficult, but let's see how we can do it. I'm telling you, the first meeting I had with my sister Monique, it was supposed to be 30 minutes. She was busy running somewhere. I went there at 3 o'clock and we left at 7. And then we both didn't sleep after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I think some wise words. Monique, perhaps before we go to get questions from the audience and our participants, two last questions. What happens next? What happens after today? And this is also perhaps an opportunity to say, what is Rwanda New Faces, New Voices going to need from everybody here today?
Thank you. Now we are. We've been launched, we've been registered, and we are starting member registration tomorrow. And we have to sit and really chart the roadmap to increasing the membership. We have the governors of the provinces, the mayors, the vice mayors. Those are people we are going to work together, but also have specialized institutions, civil service. Have you seen some of our military women here? Yeah, they're in the room. So what's next is really to sit down and come up with a strategy of how we are going to get out and communicate these ideas and widen the membership as much as possible. Because as I told you in the morning, we need to raise this capital quickly, and it's feasible. And we didn't want to raise it within something that was not legally clear, that was not institutionally clear. So that's why we kind of took this time to do it. So that's number one. Second is we have to set up that office even before we started the road shows. And we have a process started already of recruiting talents that are of that caliber Diana has been describing. So we want to complete that as soon as possible so that we don't have time to let this momentum be lost. We are thirdly going to sit down and see seriously what is that we are going to do to really in the process of mobilizing that fund, building that capacity for the women to be ready once you have closed it. So that's a priority area. And we are going to work, again, closely with people like Rwanda Development Board, people like IFC and UN Women, our partners, people like even the Development Bank, BRD, because their mission is to develop this country, and they can't do leaving behind the women. So we are going to really find in terms of operationalization, what is it we are going to do to even make those women feel like they are benefiting something while waiting for their fund to be there and to start coming back to them. Because we don't want like receive their seed capital and then make them wait for a year without knowing what is happening, without getting something really of value in terms of empowering them, building their confidence, giving them hope, and building capacity, organizing them in groups so that they start thinking about businesses that are going to actually be fed by that fund once you have it. So it's a huge preparatory work we have to do. And I would say those are the key few things we want to be done. And as soon as we are out of this conference, I think we were saying that we are going to relax a bit because the pressure of launching was too much. But I'm sorry, girls, we don't have that chance of relaxing because we have committed too much, and we just can't afford to go back and relax. So we'll go straight, hit the ground? running. Thank you so much.
Great. So it's almost a watch this space. Things are going to happen very quickly from, I think, all the actions that lie ahead. I see that we have approximately 10 minutes or so for questions and answer before the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning joins us later this afternoon. So if I could perhaps ask for three questions or so from participants, from distinguished guests here this afternoon.
Thank you so much. My name is Antoinette Wimana. I work for Women for Women International. So it's a great pleasure for us to really attend this launching of New Faces and Voices. We just want to thank you. It's a great opportunity and we support it very much because it comes to respond to the needs. Talking on development side, we work with the poorest women in the community. So it's coming to respond to a real need. Women for Women, we work with vulnerable women in the community. We have been working with them on a 12-month program where we do social empowerment, business skill training, vocational training, and also graduate follow-up. And the most challenging issues for women to just come from a level to another is access to capital is one, capacity and enough skills. So I think the vision and the mission of the organization responds not only to the needs of the women in the community, but also at all levels. So we are looking for partnership, and I can see that New Faces, New Voices is starting with strong partners. IFC, UN Women. We trust that this is a very good foundation, but we're also looking for partnership at local level, at ground, to reach out to the poorest of women. On a personal level, also, I'm really supporting the initiative. Probably we also, we support you. And we are ready also to provide information to work with you, but I think it's a real great opportunity for women in Rwanda, and we are ready to work with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My name's Judith Aguga Achon. I work for Access Finance Rwanda. Access Finance Rwanda is an initiative that is supported by the UK Aid, DFID, some investment from the World Bank and KfW to support financial inclusion in Rwanda. We are 5 years old and we are working at the macro, meso, and the micro sector. We are working with many of the banks and the institutions here. I would like to congratulate New Faces, New Voices. Congratulations. Congratulations, women of Rwanda. Personally, ever since I came here in July 2012, I've been looking for a group of women, a community of women that I can work with. So congratulations and welcome, because I'll really put my weight, I'll do what I can to see that we work together, because this cannot be done alone. You cannot work alone. We need more of you, women organizations. We need the parliamentarians. We need so many of you in your different capacities to take this to the next level. Now, so many things have been said. I wouldn't like to repeat them. But I would just like to say that the challenges that you have said are very valid. And we are again going to validate them in 2016 with the FinScope 2016. Right now, we are preparing for the FinScope 2016. We are working with the Central Bank. And it's very interesting that the new faces, new voices has come at this time. And I look forward to seeing how we can work with a number of you. However, that said aside, I know the financial institutions have been so silent. They are uncomfortable, and please do get uncomfortable because I've been talking with so many of you. But also the reality check. I would like to put a reality check because I've been working with SACCOs, I work with RCA, I work with the Central Bank, I've been working with the Rwanda Bankers Association, with the AMIA, with the Insurance Association, and there are so many structural issues that we shall need to deal with. Without dealing with the structural issues, we are looking at the symptoms. We are looking at the headache and not at the malaria. We are looking at the joints and not at the malaria. I talk about malaria because I come from Uganda, where we suffer from malaria too much. So, the structural issues. Honestly, the government of Rwanda has done a lot in terms of the policies. So that I don't even want to talk about, because immediately you talk about anything in regards to policy issues, the central bank is willing to take it up, and they've never let us down in this country. So you are really very privileged. But the issue is, there are structural issues. For instance, I know that the financial sector in this country is suffering from lack of skill sets. As long as we don't have the right skill sets, as long as we are struggling with that, however much we shall get products, however much we shall get innovations, however much we shall get the mobile going and running, we are not going to go very far. And for me, I like the fact that we have new faces, new voices, because then we are going to advocate for changes in some of these areas that are locking some of these structural issues. I liked the way the lady at lunchtime, please do forgive me, talking about the systems in the banks, in the financial institutions. Those are real. One of the things that I think somebody else talked about, why maybe women, we need to do things differently. And this is maybe the time for us to start making our financial institutions, to make them think that we need things differently. New approaches. I know there's too much information, but I also know so many people don't have information. Like I know AFRA has been around, but so many people don't know AFRA. Today I've been meeting so many people, and they don't even know where our offices are. We write newspapers, we talk on the radios, we do all this. So what is that? How can we get to the women? That's the big question that I keep looking for. So in that being said, I just say that one thing's for sure, this is a calling. It is a calling for all of us. It is a calling to be uncomfortable, and it is a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, but challenges is just a way for testing you to pass it. But it will also require lots of courage, and that has already been talked about. And above all, it will require lots of charisma. So I wish you good luck. So those are my 4 C's. Thank you.
I think a huge thank you to both Judith and Antoinette for the good words and the validation for Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. I saw Audrey's hand up here in the front.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate you and just make a point to everyone that it's probably the first, and I'm not sure Nomsa and Madame Grassa, whether you'll support me. I think it's the first launch I've been to that they're presenting a strategic plan on the same day. Usually that takes place after, so that requires a round of applause. The second thing, which is a challenge back to you, is to then say, now that you've got the strategic plan, how are you going to break it down past segment, as I spoke earlier, and go and have the conversation in the right language to all the women and the subcategories? That's a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. A last question before I hand over to my panelists to do some closing comments. We have a hand there.
Thank you very much. My name is Denise Umunyana. Sorry. I work for Airtel Rwanda, but I'm here as a new face and a new voice. So I'm interested in wealth creation, and I think new faces, new voices is just the right platform. So my question is to Diana. She mentioned something in the morning about a fixed deposit on a call. In the morning, we learned that for us to create wealth, we have to have a saving culture. And that deposit fixed on a call, I think if it's the right word, seems interesting. So I think for us as women, if we create wealth, policymakers will have no choice but to listen to us. So definitely we'll make decisions. And then if you could please explain what that means, and bankers, is that product here in Rwanda? And if it's not there, why? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope it's not a trick question, Diana. Diana, if I could perhaps ask you to handle the question, and then we've had some comments around vulnerable women, access to capital for them. I think access to Finance Rwanda, most certainly looking forward to working with Rwanda New Faces, New Voices. So I think once you've asked the question, if you could perhaps just do closing comments based on the input received. I shall then also pass over to Ignace and Dr. Monique for closing comments in line with what we've heard from the audience.
Thank you very much. This launch has generated a lot of interest, a lot of buzz, and it's very exciting. I think what Women for Women International said about access to finance for women in rural areas is a fact. It's something that we're struggling with not only in Rwanda, but in many economies. And that is something we have to address. If we do the same thing, the same way for so many years with no results, then it's time to change course. And I think this is the time, ahead of the SDGs, that we are changing course. And I'm not speaking for Monique, but I agree with you. We will need, and I'm assuming, Monique, that I'm part of New Faces, New Voices, as many partners as possible. That's my take on that. The second question on fixed deposit on call. I had it also for the first time when Nancy spoke to us. So maybe the right person to answer is Nancy. But what it is, what my understanding of it is that, you know, sometimes, exactly, you're supposed to save eventually to create wealth. So for me, that's not the only option. What I understood is that there is another, these are the products that you have in banks. They have different products. And one of them, she was saying, sometimes you need the money. Of course, people tend to put money in fixed deposit because they say, tomorrow I will need the money. And you just keep taking it, but it is not earning interest for you as you take it, as you withdraw it. Then there's another account that sometimes, and I think the person who spoke about capacity in financial institutions is spot on. I found that sometimes I'm referred to a representative in a bank, and honestly, I'm not even an economist, but I know so much more than the person who is supposed to be advising me. So it becomes so disempowering. You really feel bad. And when Nancy spoke about it, I was very interested. And then I remembered that I have an account actually in New York, and every single day they give me, whenever I check my balance, today it's maybe $20, and then tomorrow it's 20.023. And then I said, but who put 23 in my account? And then at the end of the month, it is another 20, it becomes $24. And so I've been, you know, monitoring it. I just leave it there. I don't put anything, but it keeps growing. So, you know, that probably is my on call, or, you know, but the different, my bottom line is that we should do a little more homework and not be complacent and find out what products banks have that will benefit us, that will grow our money, and we should be informed about them. If they don't tell us, let us ask.
Yes.
My takeaway from the questions, first, I can see a commitment that is going now from the chairperson of New Face, New Voice, to the public, to the women. And I would like to believe that we have probably 300 people here, and this is really a question for you, boss. Can we consider that today we have 300 shareholders of the New Face, New Voice? Fine. So this is clear. I think, Monique, you have 300 shareholders. It's 1% of what you want, but for the first day, it is a good result, and I think Mama Michelle will agree with us. This is a good start. The second thing is we spoke about access to finance for those who are most vulnerable. I think there is another element which we didn't address, which is the access to market. It is so much important to link a women farmer, a women in co-ops to a market, because this is where the bottom line will come through. And on the question of Audrey about, on the comments about being New Face, New Voice Rwanda, being the first for the putting a strategic plan on the table, I would like to add something. In addition to putting a strategic plan on the table, New Face Rwanda has constructed a partnership. And I think we being here with them is a proof that they went beyond just the thinking in-house, and they consider that there are people who can put the hand together, put the head together, and make it with them. I would like to really give a big round of applause to New Face. And lastly, on this partnership, I think capacity is one, access to market is another one, access to finance. We are already having some programming. We have invested 50 million this year with DSM, which is a nutrition food. But the reason we invested this is because there is a chain of women from the farmers delivering maize, delivering soya. So the market side will be coming from there. What we need to build is a capacity, provide solutions, and to be sure that I will not have a heart attack, because working with Monique is so strong that even in the night I get a call, and she's my boss. I have to work for her. So I have myself provided a fire. How do you call it? The fire. Firewall, and my firewall is there. She's called Ulimata. She's one of the champions for women in IFC, so she will be working with New Face, New Voice to try to develop something around these three areas. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ignace, for the continued support. He likes to call me boss, and he has a name, but I'm not going to say that name. Audrey, thank you very much for helping us. We were struggling to find an empowering name for that first cluster of women we are talking about. Those 300,000 women in the first category. For our clusters. Now, many people call them vulnerable. We didn't want that word in our strategic plan, but then we couldn't even know how to call them. So we call them low-income women, but that was not, now I have the name. You said we call them the main market. Mm-hmm. So, so that's, thank you for that. Second, I wanted to really thank Women for Women and AFR and so many people here in the room. I know maybe not everyone will take a microphone and say how supportive they are, but I know that you are. We have my Sister Helen. She's in the room. She's one of those empowering women I've ever seen. And she heads a secondary school, girls-only school. I think they're girls only. Yes. And people like Sir Helen, we are going to do wonders because we need to reach out to those girls. We want to reach out to everyone, really to build up that momentum and create that wide membership. So I wanted really to welcome any partnership. Actually, under the programming, so far we have IFC and UN Women, but our target is to go out and line as many partners under the programming as we can, because that's why we are going to get to the numbers and deliver something that is tangible as we build that investment fund and make it to deliver to the women businesses. I wanted to bring up a point on that not all the women are meant to be business women, but all the women, we should be investors. So we should be investors. So we are talking about to the women in the workplace, salaried jobs, wage employment, and people like those to really feel like New Faces, New Voices is also theirs. It's not just like people who are going to come up with projects, businesses, but for everyone to prosper financially, to know how you manage your salary, how you make. Actually, I would kindly ask Nancy to tell us what she told us. Actually, we were in the room like 220 women, and so many of us, we found that our net worth was negative. Yet we thought we were vice governors, ministers, MDs of banks. But when she taught us how to calculate your net worth, we realized most of us are in the negative. And if you please, I could make a comment on that and really inspire the women and the men in this room how really personal finance management is a key challenge. Because if you don't have that discipline, you can't even mean business, and you can't even invest and prosper. So that's the comments I wanted to make, in addition to what Ignace and Dana have made so far. So Nancy, can you make just that short?
Nancy, I think there's a very special request.
Yeah.
And not only because you're very competitive and made all of our women proud when your school history was shared this morning. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Monique. It's a very broad topic. I could present on personal financial management from morning up to evening, today and tomorrow. But let me just make a few comments, just picking up on what Dr. Monique has said. The point I was making this morning about you as an individual owning your your financial management or being able to do something about it is because it starts with you. So the habits that you have at home to do with your kitchen budget or to do with your household budget or to do with your salary, whatever you do, how much you're spending on various things and how much is coming in. Those are the fundamental principles of financial management. So what Dr. Monique is referring to is, I took them through just examples, and I work with individuals. I work with a lot of individuals where you come and tell me, look, I'm struggling. I'm trying to find, I earn so much, but I don't have enough money to invest at the end of the day. So the first thing I do is look at what is coming in, and what are your outgoings. And if your outgoings are more than your incoming, then you have a problem. If you don't know, you have a problem. And I think many women in particular fall into the category of I don't know. Yeah? So the first thing is you have to empower yourself to know what is it that's coming in and what is it that's going out. Yeah? Once you have figured out what that is what are your assets, what are your liabilities. Okay? You look at what is your income and what is your expenses. You then want to try and increase what you own as assets and reduce your liabilities. That is the fundamental principle of financial management, even for corporations, even multinationals, even NGOs, it doesn't matter. It's really quite simple. Okay? So the first thing is how much income is there? And many people forget, okay? Usually people don't forget where the income is because they are looking for money to spend. So whether it's rental income or money from that little kiosk you have or that milk you sell, that is all income, or your salary or dividends, whatever else you have. Where people tend to forget quite a lot is where they spend money. Those magazines you buy, those coffees, that hair, that dress, those holidays, that money you spend on the kids. Yeah? Not to say don't spend it, but just be aware of it and see what it means in terms of your financial growth. Yeah? So that is the fundamental principle of financial management that Dr. Monique was talking about. As I said, I work with individuals so that we work through your situation, whether it's your business, whether it is your informal sector business or it's a formal business, whether it is just your salary vis-a-vis your income. I told them that I personally invest based on my income from my wages, and I've been doing that for the last 25 years. And that is all I have done. That is all I've used as my base for investment because I don't have time to run a business. But different people have different circumstances, so we look at each person's circumstances. But everybody can make a change. Everybody can invest. I think, let me just summarize by saying that some of the people who have the most investments earn less than most of the people sitting in this room. You'll find somebody who earns the equivalent of $300. And yet that person has land, they've got this and that, and they live a very simple life, but they have actually, their net worth, which is what Dr. Monique is talking about, is higher than somebody who is earning $100,000 a year. Yeah? So it's not about what you earn, it's about how you deal with it, whatever it is you earn, however little it is. I hope that's sufficient. Thank you.
I think then just a very huge thank you to my panelists this afternoon. A lot of hard work has been done, a lot of hard work lies ahead. It's most certainly very interesting times. Dr. Monique, I almost want to ask you to invite all of us again in 3 years' time when the fund closes so that we can celebrate that with you. And most certainly also then hear about the inroads that Rwanda New Faces, New Voices have made on financial inclusion. And thank you to our participants for the engaged conversation. And over to our Master of Ceremonies. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our panelists for this insightful presentation. I wanted to highlight that as we heard this morning, New Faces, New Voices of Rwanda began in 2012 and it was launched today. So clearly we can see the hard work that has been done for the past 3 years for this strategic plan. I think they deserve a hand clap, ladies and gentlemen. While we wait for the Minister of Finance, I think we can just take a small stretching break of 10 minutes. We'll come back for the closing remarks, and then we can head over to the tent for coffee break, and then we can also look at the exhibition after the closing remarks. So ladies and gentlemen, we can take a stretching break of 10 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, for a small clarification, we will just network within the room as the minister is on his way. So we'll just stay in the room. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Rwanda Minister of Finance and Economic Plan, Mr. Gatete Claver, for our closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, a slight change. We will be waiting for our distinguished guest, Mrs. Gressa Michelle, who will be joining us for the closing remarks. So kindly bear with us, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Honorable Gatete Claver. You are welcome, sir, for your closing remarks. Thank you.
Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates from outside the country and in the country, distinguished ladies, I see very few gentlemen, all protocols observed. I'm sorry I missed quite a bit this morning. I was being informed it was extremely useful for anybody who works in the Ministry of Finance, but I was busy trying to address other issues which are coming in the budget for tomorrow Parliament, and also other very urgent meetings. I decided that this time I want to read a speech, because when it comes to the issues of women and women empowerment, it is something that we need to make sure that we read from our hearts rather than from the papers. In the Ministry of Finance, we are always guided by the President's statement when he said gender equality is not just women's business, it is everybody's business. Gender equality and women's empowerment are critical to sustainable social economic development. So this is a very powerful statement for us who are very much interested in economic development. And it is very important for us even to guide the budget, which we always worry about. One of the things that we worry about is how do we make sure that we take a budget to the cabinet that is more gender-based. Among the laws that we have put in place is the organic budget law, which stipulates that it has to be gender-responsive budgeting. And every time we want to take it to cabinet, I always look at this statement from the President, and I wonder whether the budget is really gender-based. And of course, when you take it to Parliament, I know that it's going to be even worse, because the head of the Economic Commission is a woman, the head of the Social Commission is a woman, the head of the Budget Commission is a woman, the Deputy Speaker is a woman, the Speaker is a woman, and it is a parent of 64% women. So you can imagine how worried you are if you are going to present a budget that is not gender-based. So that's one of the things that we all worry about in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. One of the things that we have seen in the Ministry of Finance is that the whole environment has been put in place. We started with the laws, addressing many of the challenges that were affecting the gender equality. The laws that are in place now for gender-based violence, the laws that are in place for inheritance, which was very critical, the laws that are giving equal pay in the workplace, the laws that are giving equal access to land to all, which has been very, very useful, because for this one, when it started being implemented since that time, and the land was being registered, currently, at the moment, 28% of all the land in the country is owned by women, and 18% is owned by men only. 54% is owned jointly, and 2% is for any other, that means owned by the government. So that really shows you that a law that has been put in place is very, very, very important in terms of changing the way we behave. And for the land, why it is very important is one of the big instruments that you would use for collateral when you're accessing money. This has been very, very crucial. Government has also put in place, apart from the laws, many policies. We started really by realizing that the big banking system, the commercial banks, were not accessible by women. And this one, the government took a decision in 2008 that we needed to have in place the small banks, what they call the microfinance banks, especially the savings and the credit cooperatives. We convinced the women that they should be part of it. And at the end of the day, currently 38.5% of the accounts that are being opened belong to women. And this is coming almost from a very small amount. This has been a very significant development. We also realized that we needed to go beyond this and put in place the Business Development Fund. And that Business Development Fund was there to make sure that we can consolidate all the support that we give to all, including women. And especially focusing on the youth and the women, where we provide guarantees that would help them access loans. But now we are expanding it to make sure that apart from the guarantees, we are also putting money in place to make sure that they can joint invest, but also increasing more resources to the savings and credit cooperatives so that they can lend more to the youth and the women. And what was very crucial here was that 75% of the guarantees were being provided from this fund, which is the Business Development Fund. This was also very useful. But also the National Employment Program is also targeting women up to the district level. The VUP, the Vision 2020 Mrenje, which we are replicating, is also assisting women. And various guarantees are also targeting women. But then one wonders whether this is sufficient. In as much as we've tried our best as government in terms of investing, in terms of putting in place the social protection program that is helping, among others, the families, we are wondering whether this is sufficient. We've also put in place the unit trust at the capital market. The capital market is a market for long-term facilities where we as government, wanting to raise money, we issue bonds. The companies can also issue bonds. They can issue stocks. But we realize that small business people also need to do their own savings, and we provided an instrument for that. But we are not really looking at whether this is gender-based or not gender-based. It depends on who can save any amount of money. And for this, we are very, very happy that this Rwanda chapter, with the new faces, new voices, has come to Rwanda because this time we want to do it properly. How do we create a facility now that is more targeting women, that is not counting women together with others, that is more specific to women? How do we design it? How do we implement it? How do we sustain it? And that's why we are happy that some of the women want to thank the Vice Governor, who has been a champion to this. I can't tell you how many times she came to my office, but I was wondering why she was coming, because we were thinking alike. Wanted maybe to have been better to convince others, but not the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. Because this is our mission, this is what we are meant to do. The only discussion is how should we do it better? Because this is what we all believe in. And that's why we are very, very grateful that our First Lady and Graça Machel are really championing this chapter, which is very, very important. It's a turnaround. In as much as we have the will, we have laid the foundation, but we need to find a way of doing this one better. How do we start a fund? How do we invest specifically in women? How do we start from the lowest of the lowest? And how do we mobilize resources to come in so that the money that is being lent to these people is affordable and it is sustainable? We've been getting resources from many other organizations, including from the IFC, who I see seated on the other side, and from the other donors. How can we consolidate all these resources into this fund so that it can be more sustainable, so that we can monitor it together? Because it has been approved from the banking system, if you look at the numbers of the regulator, the central bank, that women defaults are way lower than the average. Because currently, the non-performing loan is at 6%, coming down from 6.9% the previous year. But now we are seeing, if you go and just extract for women only, the non-performing loans are way lower. And if you go to the women organizations, they are even much lower. In other words, they pay back regardless of their capacity to pay back the loans. But they lack several things. Number one, they lack the capacity. They lack the information. They lack the sensitization so that they are more confident that they can do it. They want to be helped. It's not just money. They want to be helped on what you can do with the money and how you can come up. And for us as government, why it is very, very important as a government, is we want the country to develop. The unit of development is a family. And for that family, a woman is the center of that family. I recall some of the previous experiments that was done. where you at random give money to a husband and a wife, and then you find that, of course, the wife, more than 90% of the money is spent on issues, on things that are related to the household. But for the men, you can imagine where they go first once they get the money. The bar is the first place to stop, and you find at that point, I think it was 54% of the money was the only one that was spent in the household. So if you wanted to develop a household, which is really the source of the entire development, where would you start? You would start with a woman. You would start with... And to do that, you are already taking on more than 50% of the entire population. If we can just inject an extra effort, it means the entire economy is being really getting a very good injection in terms of investment. Now the whole idea is, how do we do it together? We've tried many things. We've included women. We have had them in leadership positions, very few in business leadership positions. But at this point in time, we are talking technical. We want a fund that is going to grow and hopefully at some point become the largest anywhere in Africa. A fund that can really empower and bring the women from the poverty levels. I was glad when you were talking about getting 1 million women out of poverty. You can imagine if you get 1 million women out of poverty, you are getting 1 million families out of poverty. And you can imagine what that means for the entire population of Rwanda in terms of the injection. If you are not one of the people who cannot support such an endeavor, I don't know what you'd be waiting for, because this is the only way that we can grow our economy. These people who are being empowered are the future clients, because this time they can afford to purchase anything that you produce. They are future clients of the banking system. They are the ones who spend on all the necessities that every household requires. And that's how we bring everybody to the middle income country level. Otherwise, it will be just theory. It will be the average GDP that we see, but it will have left so many people behind. And that's why we see this kind of function, this Rwanda chapter, becoming extremely useful. We have done studies on financial inclusion. We know we wanted to include everyone in the population here to become part of the financial sector. Once they become part of the financial sector, it means that they can access loan, that they can invest, they can borrow. It means you can invest more than you have because you can get more from what others are investing. But then practically, we still have a discrepancy. The women for quite some time have been lagging behind, and this is the time we found a solution that can assist them to really get out of that kind of situation. Otherwise, we'll be going round and round. And that's why we have opted that the Africa Development Bank, together with Rwanda, are working on a model where we can come up with specific indicators on what works, what doesn't work, how can we rate ourselves, and how can we improve, so that these kind of economic issues are part and parcel of our development strategy. And that's why we are very, very happy as government that really this chapter is coming to Rwanda, and that we have been so lucky to have the people who have been championing it. I was looking at the list, and I hope we can increase that list, and hopefully also include men, not just women on that list. This would be really a boost so that we can raise resources for that. We believe that if we work together, and especially with the support of the First Lady, who is the patron, who is championing this, and our friend, Ignace Bacyaha. Ignace Bacyaha, we were together on a panel last week on gender, and her passion for gender and her passion for Africa is quite incredible. And I'm glad really that she managed to come to Rwanda, because she's one of the most unique women that you can find anywhere, given her understanding of what a woman goes through on the African continent. We are happy that she has been here and being part of us, and we hope we can continue to take advantage and work with her, and also with the leadership of the First Lady and the initial founders of the Rwanda chapter here, to make sure that we can take this one forward. As a government, you have 100% support. And here, if you have the support from the head of state, you have the support from the entire cabinet. You have the support from the entire country. Just given the examples that the leadership has been taking us through. I don't know what else, except saying, how do we do it better? How do we do it faster? And how can we sustain it? And that's where the government is ready to support you all the way to make sure that is realized. I thank you all for coming here to Rwanda, and I thank our good ladies for this wonderful initiative, and let's just go for it. Let's do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable, for your closing remarks and your assured support to New Faces, New Voices Rwanda chapter. This brings us to the end of our very exciting, insightful, and informative day one. Before we head over for coffee and the visit to exhibition, I would like to go through tomorrow's program, where we hope to see you all back here tomorrow again for another exciting day. So tomorrow morning, we will start at 8:30 with a small recap. The recap will be followed by a panel session on the role of finance in transformation stories from experienced women in business. That will be followed by a tea break, and then we will have some exciting breakout sessions. We'll have 4 breakout sessions where we'll discuss each other's experiences. The first breakout session will be on SMEs and value chain. We'll have a breakout session on infrastructure, oil, gas, and mining. The third breakout session will be on technology and innovation. The fourth breakout session will be on financial solutions and advisory services. After that, we'll have lunch. We'll regroup back again to look at the outcome of the breakout sessions, and then we'll end up with the closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Minister, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence this morning on day one. We hope to see you again on day 2. Welcome in the tent for coffee and the visit to the exhibition. Thank you very much. Have a blessed evening.